Henry Ford was born on July 30th, 1863, on a family farm in Dearborn, Michigan. His father, William Ford, was an Irish immigrant who had built a stable life through hard work and land. His mother, Mary Lydigot Ford, was of Belgian descent. The farm was nearly 90 acres, productive enough to keep the family comfortable through brutal Michigan winters. Henry was the oldest of 6 children, and his father had one clear expectation: that Henry would take over the farm one day. That expectation was never going to be met. From the time Henry could walk, farming bored him completely. What pulled his attention were machines. Gears, springs, moving parts, the logic of how things worked. By age 7, he was taking apart every clock and mechanical toy in the house, often dismantling things that were not his to touch. His mother was patient. His father was not impressed. The moment that changed everything came in the summer of 1876. Henry was 12 years old, riding in a horse-drawn wagon with his father near Dearborn, when they came across a steam-powered road engine moving under its own power. No horses, no pushing, just a machine driving itself down the road. Henry jumped off the wagon and spent the next half hour interrogating the operator about every detail of how it worked. He never looked at the world the same way again. In 1879, at 16, Henry left the farm without his father's permission and walked 9 miles to Detroit to find work. He landed an apprenticeship at the James Flower and Brothers machine shop, earning $2.50 a week. The pay was so low that he took a second job repairing watches in the evenings just to cover his rent. His father considered this abandonment. Henry considered it the beginning. Over the next 3 years, Henry moved through several Detroit machine shops, including the Michigan Car Company and the Detroit Dry Dock Engine Works, where he worked on marine steam engines and heavy industrial machinery. Employers quickly noticed something unusual about him. He could diagnose mechanical faults that experienced engineers had spent days failing to find. By 19, he had built a comprehensive engineering education entirely through hands-on work, without a single day in a formal school. In 1882, Henry returned to Dearborn, not to farm, but because a neighbor had lent him a portable Westinghouse steam engine that needed regular maintenance. He operated it across the local farming community during harvest season, earning $3 a day and becoming one of the most sought-after mechanical operators in Wayne County. He also spent that period disassembling and reassembling the Westinghouse engine dozens of times, studying every component until he understood it completely. On April 11, 1888, Henry married Clara Jane Bryant, the daughter of a local farming family. Clara was sharp, patient, and practical. She understood immediately that her husband's obsession with machines was not a hobby. It was his calling. She managed their household finances carefully, never complained about the long nights he spent in the workshop, and supported his experiments without hesitation. Behind every risk Henry took, Clara was the steady foundation. In 1891, Henry took a position as a night engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit, earning $45 a month maintaining the steam engines and generators that powered the city's electrical grid. The night shift gave him something valuable beyond the paycheck: long stretches of quiet time that he used to run private experiments on small internal combustion engines inside the company's own engine room. By 1893, Henry had been promoted to chief engineer, earning $125 a month. The financial stability gave him room to experiment more seriously at home. In the small brick workshop behind his house on Bagley Avenue, he built a 1-cylinder gasoline engine from scrap metal. On Christmas Eve of 1893, with Clara dripping gasoline into the intake valve, the engine fired to life for the first time, filling their kitchen with smoke and noise. Henry stood there grinning. That small engine was just the beginning. Over the next 2 years, Henry built a complete self-propelled vehicle in his backyard workshop, working mostly between midnight and dawn after his regular shifts. He called it the Quadricycle. It had 4 bicycle wheels, a lightweight metal frame, a 2-cylinder 4-horsepower gasoline engine, 2 forward speeds, no reverse gear, and no real brakes. It was crude, simple, and entirely his own. On June 4, 1896, at 4 in the morning, Henry drove the quadricycle out of his workshop and onto the streets of Detroit for the first time. His friend James Bishop rode ahead on a bicycle to warn anyone in the way. The vehicle hit 20 miles per hour and held together. Henry sold it shortly afterward for $200 and immediately started designing something better. In August of 1896, Henry attended an Edison Company convention in New York City, where he was introduced to Thomas Edison himself. When a colleague described Henry's gasoline vehicle to Edison, the famous inventor leaned across the table, banged his fist, and told Henry directly that a gasoline engine was superior to electric power for personal transportation because it carried its own fuel. That moment of validation from the most celebrated inventor in America gave Henry the confidence to go all in. In 1899, Henry left Edison Illuminating to become chief engineer of the newly formed Detroit Automobile Company, backed by a group of wealthy Detroit investors. The company produced a delivery wagon in early 1900, but it was overpriced, unreliable, and sold almost nothing. Henry grew frustrated with investors who wanted quick profits, while he wanted more time to refine the engineering. The company dissolved in January of 1901 after producing only a handful of vehicles. Rather than chase new investors immediately, Henry decided to prove himself on the racetrack. He spent months building a powerful 26-horsepower racing car called the Sweepstakes, designed specifically to beat the fastest cars in America. On October 10, 1901, he entered it against Alexander Winton, the most celebrated automobile racer in the country, at a track outside Detroit. Winton's car overheated in the final laps. Henry won. The story made front pages across Michigan. The racing victory brought new investors, and Henry co-founded the Henry Ford Company in November of 1901. But the partnership fell apart quickly. When investors brought in an outside engineer to assess operations without telling Henry, he resigned in fury, taking his designs with him. The investors renamed the company Cadillac, which went on to become one of the most prestigious automobile brands in history. Henry walked away and started again. Henry then partnered with former racing champion Tom Cooper to build two new racing cars, the Aero and the 999. The 999 was brutal in its simplicity, an 80-horsepower engine bolted to a metal frame with a seat and nothing else. Henry recruited a local bicycle racer named Barney Oldfield, who had never driven a car before, to pilot it. Oldfield won the Manufacturers' Challenge Cup on October 25, 1902, setting a new American speed record. The publicity attracted exactly the kind of attention Henry needed. That attention brought Alexander Malcolmson, a successful Detroit coal merchant, who agreed to become Henry's primary financial backer. Together, they raised $28,000 from 12 investors, including the Dodge brothers, who agreed to manufacture engines and chassis components in exchange for company shares. On June 16, 1903, the Ford Motor Company was officially incorporated in Michigan. Ford Motor Company started in a converted wagon factory on Mack Avenue, with 10 workers assembling cars by hand from outside supplied parts. The first model, the Model A, was a 2-cylinder runabout selling for $850. Within 15 months, the company had sold over 1,700 vehicles and turned a profit of nearly $100,000. The foundation was solid. Between 1903 and 1908, Ford released a rapid series of models, from A through S, each a step forward in reliability and simplicity. Henry was personally involved in every design decision, constantly pushing his engineers toward mechanical simplicity over elegance. He had formed a clear conviction: the average American buyer wanted a car that started reliably, needed minimal maintenance, and could be fixed by a country mechanic with basic tools. In 1906, Henry bought out co-founder Alexander Malcolmson, who wanted to move upmarket with more expensive vehicles. With full control now in his hands, Henry directed his team toward a single goal: build one car, the right car, at a price any working American family could afford. He called it the universal car. That car was the Model T, introduced on October 1st, 1908. It had a 20-horsepower four-cylinder engine, a simple vanadium steel chassis, and was designed so that owners could handle basic repairs themselves. It came in one body style, one color, and sold for $850. The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Orders poured in faster than Ford could build the cars. Henry recognized that the real challenge was no longer engineering, it was manufacturing. How do you build the same car faster, cheaper, and in vastly greater numbers? He began studying every step of his production process, identifying bottlenecks, cutting unnecessary steps, and experimenting with new ways to organize the factory floor. In 1910, Ford moved operations to a massive new facility in Highland Park, Michigan, built on 60 acres with enormous glass-walled factory floors designed to maximize natural light. It was here that Henry and his production manager, Charles Sorensen, began the experiments that would change manufacturing forever. The moving assembly line was not a single invention. It was hundreds of small experiments conducted between 1910 and 1913. The first test involved hanging magneto flywheels on a moving chain conveyor, with workers performing single tasks as parts moved past them. Assembly time for one magneto dropped from 20 minutes to 13. Henry immediately ordered his engineers to apply the same principle to every stage of production. By the summer of 1913, Ford had a fully moving final assembly line at Highland Park. The Model T chassis was pulled along the factory floor while workers at fixed stations attached components as the car passed them. Total assembly time dropped from over 12 hours to 93 minutes. By the end of 1913, Ford was producing over 1,000 cars per day. But the assembly line created a serious problem. The work was so repetitive and exhausting that workers quit constantly. In 1913, Ford had to hire 53,000 workers throughout the year just to maintain a workforce of 14,000. The cost of constant recruiting and retraining was enormous, and product quality was suffering. On January 5, 1914, Henry announced a solution that stunned the industrial world. Ford Motor Company would raise its minimum daily wage from $2.34 to $5, more than double the industry standard, while also cutting the workday from 9 hours to 8. Within days, 10,000 men lined up outside the Highland Park gates in freezing January temperatures, hoping to get hired. Worker turnover dropped from over 300% annually to less than 16% within a year. The $5 day was not charity, it was strategy. Lower turnover meant less recruiting, less training, more consistent quality, and ultimately, lower production costs per vehicle. Henry understood something most industrialists of his era did not. Paying workers well was good for the bottom line. As production efficiency increased, the price of the Model T fell steadily. From $850 in 1908, it dropped to $360 by 1916. Car ownership, once a luxury for the wealthy, became a realistic possibility for millions of ordinary American families. By 1916, Ford was producing over 700,000 Model T vehicles per year and held roughly 50% of the entire American automobile market. In 1917, Henry began planning an entirely new manufacturing complex along the Rouge River in Dearborn. The River Rouge Complex became the largest integrated industrial facility ever built. At its peak, it covered 2,000 acres, contained 93 buildings, had 100 miles of internal railroad track, and employed over 100,000 workers. Raw iron ore arriving by ship could be transformed into a finished, fully assembled automobile within 28 hours. Henry owned the iron ore mines, the coal mines, the timber forests, the rubber plantations, and the cargo ships that fed the Rouge Complex. Ford Motor Company was the most vertically integrated industrial enterprise in the world. Nothing like it had ever existed before, and nothing quite like it has existed since. While building this industrial empire, Henry was also developing personal beliefs that would permanently stain his legacy. Beginning in 1920, he used his personal newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, which reached nearly 1 million readers weekly, to publish a systematic series of anti-Semitic articles blaming Jewish people for a wide range of America's social and economic problems. The articles were later compiled into a 4-volume book titled The International Jew, translated into 16 languages and distributed internationally. The Dearborn Independent ran this content for nearly 91 weeks, drawing heavily on a fraudulent Russian propaganda document called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which had already been thoroughly exposed as a fabrication. Henry presented it to his readers as fact. Prominent Jewish Americans filed defamation lawsuits against him personally. In 1927, facing mounting legal pressure and damage to Ford's commercial reputation, Henry issued a formal public apology and shut down the newspaper. But the damage had spread far beyond American borders. The International Jew was circulating widely across Europe, where it was read and admired by a rising Austrian political agitator named Adolf Hitler. Hitler kept a portrait of Henry Ford on his office wall in Munich, praised him by name in Mein Kampf, and in July of 1938, awarded him the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, Nazi Germany's highest honor for a foreign civilian. Henry accepted the medal without protest, just 4 months before Kristallnacht, the devastating nationwide pogrom against Jewish Germans that destroyed thousands of synagogues and businesses and killed dozens of people across Germany. The acceptance caused significant public outrage in the United States, though it had little lasting commercial impact on Ford's sales. While the anti-Semitism controversy unfolded, Ford Motor Company was facing its gravest commercial crisis. By the mid-1920s, the Model T was losing ground rapidly to General Motors, which under Alfred P. Sloan had reorganized itself to offer buyers multiple vehicles at different price points, in multiple colors, with annual styling updates. Henry refused to accept that consumer preferences had changed. He dismissed the idea of annual model changes as wasteful and dishonest, even as his sales data told a different story. General Motors introduced the Chevrolet as a direct Model T competitor, priced only slightly higher but offering more comfort, more power, and more visual appeal. Chevrolet sales climbed every year. Model T sales began declining in 1925. Henry's engineers and sales managers placed market research and sales figures in front of him repeatedly. He ignored all of it. By early 1927, the situation was no longer ignorable. Model T sales had collapsed. Ford was losing money monthly for the first time in company history, and dealers across the country had showrooms full of unsold inventory. On May 26, 1927, Henry finally announced the permanent discontinuation of the Model T after 19 years of production and 15,700,000 units built, a record that would stand for decades. The transition was brutal. All Ford plants shut down simultaneously for nearly 6 months, while the entire manufacturing infrastructure was retooled. 60,000 workers temporarily lost their jobs. Dealers had nothing to sell. Suppliers lost their contracts. The retooling of the River Rouge Complex alone cost over $150 million. The replacement was a new Model A, unveiled on December 2, 1927, at simultaneous launch events across the United States. An estimated 10 million Americans showed up on the first day just to see it in person. The new Model A offered 4 body styles, 17 color options, a 40-horsepower engine, 4-wheel brakes, and safety glass. Ford received over 400,000 orders within 2 weeks. The Model A restored Ford's momentum, but the company never fully recaptured the dominance it had held during the Model T era. General Motors continued gaining market share throughout the late 1920s, and by 1931 had surpassed Ford in total annual vehicle sales for the first time. It would hold that position for the next 7 decades. Henry's answer to both the Great Depression and General Motors was a bold engineering move. In 1932, Ford introduced the V8, featuring a flathead V8 engine producing 65 horsepower, cast as a single unified block rather than assembled from separate parts, making it cheaper to manufacture than any competing V8 on the market. It was fast, affordable, and immediately captured the public imagination. It also attracted unwanted admirers. Bank robber Clyde Barrow reportedly wrote Henry Ford a personal letter praising the V8 as the finest getaway car he had ever driven. Through the 1930s, Henry's management became increasingly erratic. He handed enormous power to Harry Bennett, a former Navy boxer with ties to organized crime, who headed Ford's internal security. Bennett built a network of informants and enforcers throughout the workforce, spied on employees, suppressed union activity through intimidation and violence, and systematically undermined the authority of legitimate Ford executives, including Henry's own son, Edsel. The most violent confrontation with labor came on May 26, 1937, in what became known as the Battle of the Overpass. United Auto Workers organizers, including Walter Reuther, gathered on a public overpass near the River Rouge plant to distribute Union literature. Without warning, approximately 40 of Bennett's security men attacked them, breaking bones, tearing clothing, and kicking the fallen men on the ground. News photographers captured everything. The images ran on front pages across the country.
The National Labor Relations Board investigated and ruled that Ford Motor Company had systematically violated federal labor law. Despite the ruling, Henry refused to recognize the union or negotiate a contract for another 4 years, making Ford the last major American automaker to accept union representation. In April of 1941, River Rouge workers launched a massive strike that shut down the entire plant. Picket lines blocked every entrance. Production stopped completely. The strike lasted 10 days. It ended not because of legal pressure or financial calculation, but because of Clara Ford. Deeply distressed by the violence and public condemnation, she told Henry directly that she would leave him if he did not sign a union contract immediately. Henry, who had resisted unions for over a decade through intimidation and force, gave in on the spot. He signed the contract with the United Auto Workers in June of 1941. Edsel Ford, who had carried the nominal title of company president since 1919, while his father held all real authority, died of stomach cancer on May 26, 1943, at the age of 49. His death was a blow Henry never fully recovered from. For decades, Henry had publicly undermined his son, overruling his decisions, dismissing his ideas, and refusing to grant him genuine authority. Many who knew Edsel believed the relentless pressure from his own father had contributed to his physical decline. During the Second World War, Ford made one of the most remarkable industrial pivots in American history. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Ford's massive Willow Run plant near Ypsilanti, Michigan, the largest factory under a single roof in the world at the time, was converted to produce B-24 Liberator bombers. At peak output in 1944, the plant was completing 1 bomber every 63 minutes. Ford delivered over 8,000 bombers to the United States Army Air Forces before the war ended. With Edsel gone and Henry now in his 80s, suffering the effects of multiple strokes that had seriously impaired his memory and judgment, Ford Motor Company fell into a dangerous leadership vacuum. Harry Bennett seized the opportunity, positioning himself as Henry's closest confidant and manipulating the aging founder into decisions that served Bennett's own interests. Senior executives who challenged him were pushed out. The company was deteriorating from within. The Ford family and the United States government intervened. Edsel's eldest son, Henry Ford II, was discharged from the Navy and brought back to Dearborn. In September of 1945, he convinced his grandfather to sign over the presidency. His first act was to fire Harry Bennett on the spot. When Bennett pulled a sealed envelope from his desk, claiming it contained Henry Sr.'s final instructions for the company, Henry Ford II told him he was not interested, fired him, and had security escort him from the building. Henry Ford died on April 7, 1947, at his Fair Lane estate in Dearborn at the age of 83. A spring storm had knocked out the power to the property, leaving his bedroom lit only by candles and oil lamps, a quiet, unplanned echo of the pre-industrial world he had done more than anyone to dismantle. Clara was at his side. Hundreds of thousands of mourners came to pay their respects. He left behind a fortune valued at approximately $700 million, a company that employed hundreds of thousands of people, and a method of manufacturing that had permanently altered the way the world made things. The man who had walked 9 miles to Detroit as a 16-year-old with nothing but a mechanical obsession had, by the end of his life, put a car in the driveway of the average American family, turned raw iron ore into finished automobiles in 28 hours, and forced every manufacturer on Earth to reconsider how a product could be built. No single person did more to shape the physical rhythm of modern daily life.